Hello, 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 and welcome to a bonus episode of the Borgen podcast. This is the only English language show that talks about the fictional Danish politics of the parliament on the show Borgen. I'm one of your hosts, Amy, coming at you from Istanbul, Turkey. And as always, I'm joined by my good friend and co-host, Chantal. And we discuss the people, events, and parties that make up this fictional Danish parliament. And this is one of our bonus episodes, a more casual conversation, going a little bit of a deeper dive into a couple of the topics that we've been covering recently. And Chantal, you have the floor.
Thank you, Amy. And so this is a continuation of 6, just to get a little bit more deeper into the conversations, because 6 was very loaded with political situations. And I wanted to spend a little more time just looking at the character of Birgitte in episode 6, along with her father. Mm-hmm. We meet him for the first time, and Philip, and how we see Philip's attitude transition a bit. So this is the episode where Birgitte is hosting a state dinner for the first time, and the father is coming into town because the father is coming in to attend the poetry reading of Vladimir Bayanov, who we know from episode 6.
Episode 6, yeah.
Episode 6, he is, very controversial political figure who was in exile for 10 years, political dissident, but he's also an author of poetry. So he's coming into town. Birgitte's father, we meet him for the first time. He's coming into town to attend the reading. He's going to be staying at the house with Birgitte and Philip and the kids. And we sort of see another side of Philip come out because of the father's presence. And it becomes obvious that the father that Philip doesn't really gel with the father. And so
they don't get along. Yeah.
They don't get along. And, in the episode, he says that he'll be the one looking after the father. And Birgitte says that she's hosting a state dinner for the first time and to give her 2 days. And Birgitte asks him to look after the father for 1 to 2 nights, because she's busy with stuff,
she's the PM.
She's the PM. So
it's like Philip loses sight of the fact fairly frequently that his wife is not just the leader of an office or
the office
team
manager.
Of people. Yeah, it's like she's the leader of the nation. Yeah. And she has several people that she's accountable to, such as the electorate.
Such as every
the people of Denmark, every citizen of Denmark.
Whether they voted for her or not, she's for the people,
She frequently says that too. She says that specifically, actually, in some, I remember seeing that in an episode. And, it's like, Philip is like, you're not here to take care of the kids. Mm-hmm. And it's like, yeah, dude, I'm running the fucking country. Like, come on, buddy.
Yeah, and let's not forget that she's a new PM. Like, she's in the
first 200 days or something.
Yeah, I was going to say 600
first year,
months or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
she hasn't been in the job for very long. So as all of us, like us regular people, like Amy and I, starting new jobs. I started a new job not that long ago, year and a half ago. Yeah. You spend time getting your bearings, getting to know the landscape of the people and the culture at work, and the expectations and the mechanics and the technicalities of the job. So I feel he doesn't cut her enough slack. And
no, he does not.
He starts to get pouty, and he starts to complain that her father patronizes him and sees him as the evil capitalist.
Yes.
So for him, he's more offended and hurt by that than sort of turning it and saying, well, I could put that aside because I am in a partnership with Birgitte. I am married to her. I can put my feelings aside because I have to support my wife, who is also the prime minister. So he gets very pouty, and
he is pouty. It's ridiculous.
So in that scene, it's ridiculous. But in that scene, I hear on my notes, I said that Birgitte gets stern with him and raises her voice and shuts him down and tells him she does not want to discuss it because she doesn't have time for it. You know what I'm saying? She's got other important things to do. And here's the quote.
She's like, isn't that when she's getting dressed for the gala in an hour and a half and has to run?
No, I think that's the next morning.
A little bit.
I think it's the next morning. Or is it the gala? I'm not sure.
She's busy. Okay.
She's busy. She's got things to do. So she gets stern with him. She raises her voice and shuts him down and tells him she does not want to discuss it. And end quote. She says, "Will you help me out? Thanks." And he asks if she does not want to discuss it. And she says, "Not now," because she's busy. She can't just drop the job to talk to him about this,
Yeah. And like pet his little hand.
Yeah. I mean, when your in-laws are coming over, whether you like them or not, I think you need to show some sort of consideration, especially when your wife is the PM, as we talked about. But yeah, so my note about this, we see Brigitte's world, we meet the father, which we'll talk about him in a second, but we see her world collide here between the personal and professional, because we know she's got all this stuff with Grozin and Bayanov going on in the background. So she's dealing with this high level government and international situations that she needs to address delicately with tact, intelligence, and diplomacy, and keep her head on. And as we talked about, she hasn't been a PM for very long. And her home life is becoming heated because, like we said, he's not happy with the father coming to visit. And so then we meet the dad. So what I liked about this episode, meeting the dad, is that Brigitte is not some, look at me, I'm the PM and I'm so rich and I'm going to send cars and I'm going to do this. Like, the father, I believe, takes a cab from the airport to her place.
I think he takes the train. He takes a train to her place.
A train?
He doesn't even fly. He takes a train, as far as I'm aware. Yeah.
Okay. So he takes the train and he, no car goes to pick him up. There's no driver for him. He just comes to the house. And I like the dad. I don't have any issue with the dad. I think he's, an older man coming to see his grandkids, staying in a house, seeing his daughter. I think he's happy to be there and enthusiastic. It's just that Philip doesn't get along with him. And he's very enthusiastic to hear Bayanov's poetry. And he's a fan of Bayanov, but he doesn't know what's brewing in the background with Brigitte and Bayanov and Grozin. So that, again, is a real test of Brigitte. But Amy, you had a good point. We were talking offline a bit about how you saw the role of Philip and the fathers. You want to talk about that?
Sure. So to me, like, the dad being like the young student of the 60s, let's say, or 50s, it's hard to tell how old he is exactly. So he's like, the boomer generation who came of age in the 50s and 60s after the Second World War. And of course, Europe at that time was very left leaning, and he's like old school left guard, like socialist, European socialist, lefty thinker, right? And like not necessarily down with the world of Philip, who is an economics professor and who focuses on the fiscal life and like capitalism and like the poetry thing. So the father supports Bayanov, the poet, of course, because he's like the artist speaking his truth, of the difficulties of his nation, and he speaks to their oppression. And probably a lot of what Bayanov says is true. I'm sure that there are, I'm like, it's never really exactly said who did what to who or what happened with, what's the leader's name?
Grozin,
yeah, with Grozin and like his heavy-handedness and like his cruelty, but it's very typical like Eastern European dictator stuff. And naturally, the father, being that like 60s leftist, supports the leftist protest poet, right? That's the side that you're on from that generation. But Philip isn't even concerned about that. Like, he's more worried about like the economic implications of what happens if Bayanov gets arrested under Brigitte's watch, and how is that going to look for her? And also, like, what's the economic implication if Turgizia pulls out its wind deal?
Right. Like, so yeah, just to recap. So it was $1 billion that Turgizia was going to put into this. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Euros, €1 billion that they were going to put into the wind turbine energy system in Denmark. So yeah. So Philip is thinking about all that, or is he? Maybe he's just thinking about himself.
Yeah, he's probably just thinking about himself. I mean, I think that's what this episode is about. He's really starting to feel crushed. By having to be kind of a full-time dad and a full-time professor without Brigitte being around a lot. But what is she supposed to do? It's like she's not just heading up a group of secretaries. She's not an admin assistant. She's not even an office manager. She's running a country.
I know.
So she has responsibilities to her ministers. She has responsibilities to the media. She has responsibilities to the electorate, whether or not that electorate voted for her. She still has to help everybody, or like feel obliged to like address all the issues. And that is a 24/7 job. That's not a 9 to 5, like, I will just leave my work and go home then. You know, like you can't do that. Like in episode 6, she comes home for dinner. She has to leave at 8 to go meet Crone again because she refuses to just accept a meeting from him when he demands it. But like, even she can only make a 2-hour concession to somebody like that. So what is she supposed to do?
Yeah.
Like, she can't be there all the time. And that's just the reality of the job. And like, they discussed it at the beginning when she got elected, and he encouraged her. And now he's just whinging because he didn't realize how hard it would be.
Exactly. But I feel in life, this is a real struggle that everyone faces, even the little guys like us, like regular Joes, you know, like regular citizens of the world, where we want to take on a new challenge. We envision what it's going to be like. We hope it's going to be like that. And we don't consider that, you know, life can get in the way and other factors can come up that will really make you, you know, rethink what you decided on. And unfortunately, they're married and committed, and somehow they've got to make it work, or they've got to look at other alternatives, right?
Yeah.
Because,
I think part of the problem is normally, I mean, and we've seen this happen during the pandemic, right? So you have 2 adults in a heteronormative relationship, let's say, with or without kids. Okay. With kids, let's use with kids example, because I mean, neither one of us has kids. And honestly, that made the pandemic lockdown thing paradise for me. Paradise. It was so nice.
Agreed.
Oh my God. But anyway, I understand that having a husband and kids around would make things particularly difficult. And there was a number of, I mean, this is something that's been looked at and examined, and like there's news articles about it and stuff. A lot of people resigned or cut their hours during the pandemic because they had to work from home. And a lot of people who cut their hours or quit their jobs were women. Why? Because God forbid the husband of the house should take a step back from his very important job and like deal with the fact that he's a parent. I'm trying not to swear. And he's a parent and, take some responsibility for raising the kids while working from home, just like your wife has to do. Why is it all of a sudden her responsibility to cover 3 jobs, looking after her work, looking after her kids, and looking after her husband? That's some BS right there.
And looking after herself, right? So 4 jobs.
Oh, there's no time. There's no time for that.
And
that comes last.
That's not important. You don't need to look after yourself. You're there to serve everyone else. And it's complete BS. And it's I don't know. I feel it was a real test in this pandemic for a lot of people, because why does it always default back to the woman?
Exactly.
Why can't the man lift a finger and do what the woman does and go and cook for these kids and clean the house? Anyways, that's another like rant for another day. But back to this. So like I said, I like the father. I feel the conflict that Birgitte has with her job and being a wife and being a daughter. I also like sort of the vulnerability the father has, where he confesses to Birgitte, you know, there's not a day that goes by that I don't miss your mother. And he really wants to see, you know, Philip and Birgitte. I think he's innocently saying it, or maybe he picks up on the tension. He probably picks up on the tension, but he tells her that, you know, she says that her home life has become heated because Philip is not happy that, you know, he was coming to visit and spend time, and that Philip had to spend time and entertain and all that. And late at night, they have a talk, and the father apologizes for getting mad about her decision about Bayanov. And she tells him that she's the PM and she has to make very tough decisions that she does not want to make.
Exactly.
And then
it's not personal.
It's not personal. It's not a
personal decision that she can just side with the guy, you know?
No. And it's also not personal that she's not chatting with her dad over a cup of coffee. Yeah. She can't talk about this to her father. And I guess from the lens of a parent and neither Amy and I are parents, but parents to.
I'm a teacher. I'm close. Yeah, I'm like a secondary parent figure to some people.
Secondary figure, yes. But from a parent's lens, they probably never get out of seeing their child as their child, and not this.
Oh, definitely not. Yeah,
huge decision maker, powerful, woman. And he that's why he feels he can say to her, "Oh, don't arrest him," because he's forgetting who he's talking to. It's not the little girl that he raised. It's the woman who is the prime minister of the country. So
and it's
I thought that was good.
Yeah. And of course it's also like reconciling the political views of her father's time with the political realities of Brigitte's time, and the fact that she is the leader. Like in the, when her father was like, I can imagine him being like this like socialist activist guy, with the scarf and the army coat in the 60s, right? Like there's pictures of the Paris student riots in 1968 and stuff. But that reality is like over. Like the world of economics, the world of trade, the world of like, secretive torture and stuff that the leader of Kyrgyzia seems to be committing, according to that intelligence file that Brigitte has. It's like, it's never a black and white issue. On the surface, it looks like it is, but it never is. There's always something else going on in the background. It never is.
And there's high level information that's not privy to the public, and that
always
say. So for example, I consider that envelope of photos as classified, when she pulls out the photos, and it's, photos of bloodshed and, mass graves and stuff like that. But Amy, you had talked about how Philip has the economist lens, and you're right, because I'm just looking at my notes from episode 6, and this is where it turns out that Philip has shares in North Wind.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
So she asked Philip
to sell his shares. He has to sell the
shares. Right. Yes, because Grozin is going to place 1 billion euros with a 1 billion euro order with North Wind. And she tells him that they cannot make a profit off of her cabinet's policy. And he's not happy about that. And he actually thinks she's joking. But then,
because it's like, and it's not even directly that company. It's like the parent company of that company or something. Like he just has shares. He just happens to have them. And it's not, they're absolutely not connected in any way.
No, actually, I think this one is the company Northwind, but I think in another scenario, this comes up later, I believe, when they were talking about buying planes.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right.
It's like a company of a company that Philip was going to work for. So that
that's right.
We don't want to spoil it for people who haven't gotten there yet. So then we know that he's not happy, and she thinks he's joking. He rolls his eyes, and that's when we hear Philip's dad, or Brigitte's dad, comes in. Obviously he does not want to sell them, but he has to. And again, this is another concession of marrying the prime minister, or having a wife that becomes the prime minister, right?
And that's a very, very safe move. Like it may not even be necessary, but Brigitte is playing by the rules because that's how she does, right? Like a less scrupulous PM like Hesselbo, perhaps, who we know has
a crook,
or can be a crook, right? He misspent that money in episode 1, right? Instead of sending his assistant or getting his assistant to bring him his wallet or whatever, he just pays and he thinks he can fix it. And it comes and bites him in the butt later, right? So Brigitte is covering all her bases, I think, and playing it safe politically, which is a smart thing to do. And remember, she is a member of the moderate party. Like that means you act moderately, So it's like she has to. It's her party's policy to be kind of on the ball with that kind of stuff. And she's very, as we saw with, Henrietta there in the previous episode, she's very concerned about everything looking proper as far as credentials and accountability go. And so it would be unethical for Philip to have those shares, even if they only paid off like 100 euros a month or something. It's still like Like we don't know
I
how much they're worth or anything.
I would do the same. I would do the same. They're not on the poverty line. They don't need to hang their hat with Northwind. They can get out, because to me, it's a lot more explosive and worse when, not if, when the news comes out that Philip, the prime minister's husband, had shares in Northwind, right? And the prime minister knew that 1 billion euros were going to be invested in that company. So but I like seeing I like seeing Brigitte here with her dad, because she is a daughter as well, not just a wife and a mother and a prime minister. And I sort of see the father's vulnerability when he tells her that divorce was the worst thing that happened to him, and that he misses her mother, Brigitte's mother, every day, and he wants Brigitte to promise that her and Philip will always stay together, which I think is an impossible ask of your child.
That's such big foreshadowing too. Like it's obvious the father picks up on the tensions between them, and like things have not been going well. And Philip is really getting impatient and frustrated, actually. And you're right. In a role reversal, a woman who had an absentee husband in a role like that would probably never even question the fact that he wasn't there, because it would be expected that he wouldn't be there.
Right. It would be expected.
Men are supposed to, he's a big man in a powerful position. He's not supposed to be at home taking care of the kids. Right. You're a big woman in a powerful position. Why aren't you home taking care of your kids?
Exactly.
It's a question that comes up for people who work, like single moms, corporate moms, teacher moms, everybody. Like all women with kids get that question. It's like right up there with what are you wearing? And, nobody ever asks male politicians, how do you balance your career with being a dad? I've never heard a male politician get asked that question. Like, what are your parental responsibilities? How are you handling
how
life with
have
small
your
kids?
Responsibilities change? When do you find time to take your kids to their sports or go to their school events? And but that perpetuates the sexism of our cultures, right?
Yeah, of course it
because
does. Yeah.
If you flip the script, even in these like subtle subliminal ways, for example, I always like to say in women's so a lot of bathrooms now are gender neutral, which is great, but not in Turkey. Not in Turkey. I could say the bathrooms here are gender neutral, some of them, right? Mm-hmm. But my example I go to is in bathrooms that are still women's bathrooms and men's bathrooms. Why is there not a change table for a baby in the men's room? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because that subliminally, every time a man walks into the bathroom, which men are going to the bathroom every day, when they see a change table there, subliminally, they're like, oh, a man could bring his baby in here to change their diaper. Yeah, this is normal.
Yeah, of course. I bet most dudes wouldn't even really register it if it was, you know what I mean? Like, I doubt it would, or most dudes without kids wouldn't register it because it has nothing to do with them. And we know that men have very narrow focused minds. Sorry, men. But like, the men who have kids, like I've known single dads, I've known guys on their own with kids, or like who have shared custody with their the mother of their child's
ex-partner.
Ex-partner and stuff. And it's like, it's not easy, actually. What do you do if you're a man with a daughter, a single dad with a daughter? What do you do? Just let her wander into a public bathroom on her own when she's 8?
No. I would if I was a man, I would go into the woman's bathroom with her, and the women there would understand.
Hopefully, or they'd flip out.
They would, but the man is going in there accompanied by a child. It's not like he's going there, like if it was not a gender neutral bathroom, right?
Yeah. Or like they're family bathrooms too. You see that in airports a lot now. Like,
family.
What airport was I in? Was it might have been in Turkey, or it might have been, this is a while pre-pandemic times. It might have been when I was going to Dublin with the students. I'm the leader of the Model UN Club, which is part of the reason why I like Borgen so much, because it's a really good example. Well, it's a really good example. And like, I should actually use some of these episodes sometimes for the kids are like, how would you solve this problem? This is how a problem gets solved in a democratic environment. This is how you make deals.
But that's the thing about this show. I mean, that's why I decided to split this out as a bonus episode, because some of these episodes are incredibly dense. I mean, I'm doing prep right now for episode 8, because as you know, Amy and I Amy does all the odd numbers. I do numbers. So I'm trying to prep for what we're going to say for episode 8, what I'm going to say for episode 8. And it's not as dense as episode 6. Episode 6 is incredibly dense. And I didn't want to cut anything to lose the emphasis and effect of what actually is all going on in that episode.
Exactly.
But, you know, maybe we should tie this one up, Amy. And I'll just tie it up by saying I enjoyed episode 6 because it was so loaded. And we got to see Birgitte look so gorgeous, and I got all starstruck, and I have to watch these.
I know.
I always joke with my straight girl friends, and I'm just like, you know, guys, I have a confession to make. I need to watch these scenes multiple times because I just get so in awe with Birgitte. I think she's beautiful, and
I do too, actually. And I am a straight woman. And like, I want all her clothes. Like, I think we're the same size. I could wear her clothes, I think.
I don't know.
Not her tall boots though, because I have really thick legs, but like, I could definitely pull off those suits.
I love her clothes, her power, her behind her desk. I just think she's so striking. So yeah, that is my confession on this bonus episode, that I got so starstruck. I'm just so in awe with her beauty and sexiness that and I did tell my friends this. I need to watch the episodes a few times, or the scenes a few times rather. And on top of that, you know, to really digest what they're saying in Danish. But yeah, so just to wrap this episode up, I'll say I enjoyed seeing Birgitte sort of from all these different areas of wife, mother, daughter, prime minister, woman, and having to make these incredibly, really difficult decisions. Like, I was on the edge of my chair, like, oh my God, what is she going to do? What's going to happen? So I really liked it. And I think also having her dad there was, even though it was, you know, a bit dramatic because of Philip, I think she needed it to see her father, you know.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Time with him, you know.
Of course. So,
anything else you want to say in closing?
I know Philip's kind of annoying, but I think he's hot, actually. The actor is really good looking.
I think Philip is good looking, and that would definitely be a man crush of mine. But like, but
his character is so off-putting right now.
His character is getting off-putting, and I'm starting to lose my patience with him because I really think he's giving up. He's giving up, and he needs to have more understanding and believe more in Birgitte, because I think Birgitte is a fabulous catch. I mean, in my life,
obviously.
That would be a fabulous catch. Someone who's not home all the time and leaves me alone, and I can record a podcast with Amy, and I could do my day job work, and you know.
I mean, but we don't have to. We don't. You know, if you have kids, it's different, I guess. But still, like, step up and be a dad. Just be a dad. Just be a parent. I don't understand how, like, you know, in these heteronormative relationships, it's like male incapable of doing X, Y, and Z. Woman must do everything.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, I think
it's ridiculous.
I think it's the way they're programmed from a young age.
Yeah, and us.
The way the boys are raised, and the girls, right? Like, especially certain cultures where it's embedded that girls set the table, they clear the table, they wash the dishes, and the man sits down. It comes from a young child, and the examples you see around you, and the way your parents or your parental figures in your life.
Yeah, the family.
A mom and a dad. It doesn't have to be whoever is raising you. They show you the way. So, all right, with that, we're going to leave it there, and we'll see everyone on the next episode, where we're going to talk about episode 7 and 8. So we'd like to thank our listeners for joining us on this bonus episode. You can check us out on our website, theborgenpodcast.com, where all of our podcasts are archived, and you can learn more information about us and about the show. We'd like to thank our good friend Garth Jensen for providing the intro and outro music. Thank you very much, Garth. And lastly, don't forget to check us out on all social media platforms. We are there, and we'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to connect with us and share what's on your mind by using the hashtag #TheBorgen Podcast, or by sending us an email or voice memo at theborgenpodcast@gmail.com. All right, Amy.
Perfect.
See you next time.
See you next time.